award any active service people first. Because nobody, usually in our facility, I have down here, you know, overnight full and mostly golf caddies.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
You are, you're good to go.
We're good to go. There we go. Okay.
We all set, Leslie?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order, have roll call.
Marie-Claire Gorham.
Here.
John Krischer.
Here.
Susan Murphy. Phil Pardue.
Here.
Mary Jo Williams.
Here.
All here, thank you.
Okay, we'll have the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, doesn't look like we have any public appearances, so we can move right on. Do we have any announcements from any of the trustees? Anybody?
No, I've got bookmarks if any, most of you have them, but this tells you we're not gonna do a large book sale this year, so we're selling books out of the book room, that's the hours. So I have extras if you need them.
Anything from the library director?
No announcements at this time.
All right. Okay, we'll receive a report from the Carmel Foundation. Alex?
Good morning, trustees. Really excited to note that our annual board retreat went very well. As mentioned, we have about 19 board members this year, because we do have some terming off, but we're really excited about the participation. And our theme was personal impact, and so your own personal impact, we're asking all of our board members to think about what they bring and their talents and their expertise to the organization in support of the library. So it was really exciting. Also want to say a big thank you to everyone, those of you who could make the library appreciation breakfast. It was really fun. And we had a great cross-section of library, foundation, librarians, and also city officials. So everyone came, from the mayor to all the council people, and it was terrific. So thank you if you were able to attend. We've also kicked off our annual community programs with the Bruton Sisters. We had over 100 people just in person and then more online. And we just kept getting great response about that. I was really happy that we could highlight that talk. I know she's given the talk in the area, but especially she's one of our own librarians, former librarians, so that was really, really fun. And then the library and the Library Foundation have launched an integrated social media campaign, which will kick off next week. Really excited about that. That's a lot of plates to spin, wheels to turn, but I think it's going to be really successful and help us increase our visibility and our communication and messaging in the area. And last but not least, we were accepted for the Monterey County campaign again this year. It's become more competitive because there's so many nonprofits that are seeking that extra 10% to 20% matching gift. So we encourage everyone to contribute during that time, because we do get that matching, and it's really exciting to be part of that again this year. And that's what I have so far. Any questions at all? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from our last meeting in August. Anybody have any changes?
No, do you need a motion?
I need a motion to
I never
approve
gonna
it.
get this on. Okay, I can't get it on, but I move that we approve the minutes from the August meeting.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Get a roll call on that?
Marie-Claire Gorham.
Yes.
John Krischer.
Yes.
Susan Murphy.
Yes.
Phil Pardue.
Yes.
Mary Jo Williams.
Yes.
Approved. Thank you.
Okay, Ash, will give the library report?
Yes, I will. So this month I did something a little different. I've been talking about bringing this forward to the board. So our monthly reports for July and August looked as they should. There's always the up and downs after summer reading with kids circulation, people going on vacation, back to school. So nothing for any, alarming changes with the monthly reports themselves. But we have been having this ongoing conversation amongst the trustees about ebooks and, kind of what our pandemic recovery looks like. So I included a couple charts that I have started keeping track of as we were coming out of the pandemic. The first one, chart 1, is kind of the rainbow-looking chart that's included in your packet. And that's a snapshot looking at where we were in 2018 before the pandemic in terms of adult circulation, kids circulation, electronic checkouts, and then also taking a look at our patron visits, questions, programs, program attendance. And these are statistics that we collect and submit to the state library every year. And they factor into, how well we're doing in terms of star library status as the state looks at those and does a comparison with those. Overall, our circulation has rebounded to what it was before the pandemic and actually exceeds it. Part of that is due to the electronic checkouts, which have jumped up significantly, especially for adults. With the kids' circulation, we're about the same level we were before. Something we found during the pandemic was families, we have different, contingents in the community for how they like to discover books. For families, it's easier for them to browse and find things that they're interested on the shelves. So like an initiative that we launched during the pandemic was surprise bags. Tell us the age of your kids, what they're kind of interested in, and we'll find 10 to 15 books and put them in a surprise bag for you, because we couldn't have people in the library browsing like they did. So now we've got all of our browsers back, and those kids' numbers have jumped up. With adult circulation, again, electronic checkouts for Canopy, so that's streaming movies, Hoopla, Overdrive, remain robust. Now, before the pandemic, I was tracking our statistics for ebook usage, e-resource usage, and there's the Institute for Museum and Library Services puts out an annual report, but it's about 3 years behind, because what they do is they take each state and they compile the statistics to see what library trends are. And one of the things that they were starting to see was that circulation was dropping a bit every year, but program attendance and library usage was going up. So what we saw during the pandemic was we hit the gas pedal on some of those trends that we were seeing, which was increase in electronic usage and increase in library usage overall, with some drop in hard copy material circulation. So we're right on track with things that I was already paying attention to prior to the pandemic. Now, for us, and I do look at statistics for our local libraries and do comparisons there and see how we're stacking up with the county and Pacific Grove and Monterey, and they're all seeing these same trends. You can get all of those if you really want to do a deep dive into every library statistics. They're all available on the California State Library website. Chart 2 takes a step further back, and what I was trying to do with Chart 2 was to illustrate changing library services over time in our community, specific to our community. So looking at the circulation across the board for adult, kids, and electronic checkouts, but also our patron visits and the number of books we had in our collection. Down below, you'll also see different things that were happening in the world that impact our services. So for instance, when does the internet get started? When are we adopting new technologies? When do we first have a website? The introduction of the iPhone and iPads changed the way that people interact with books and what's going on. The recession, there's I've talked about this before, the librarian's axiom, which is not something that's been proven, but says that during a recession, you'll see a reduction in library funding, library staff, but you'll see a huge increase in library usage because people are coming to us because they can't afford to buy their own books anymore. They're looking to us for programming because they can't afford tickets to the theater. They're looking for jobs, and so we fill that need there. I also tracked when we first we start adopting Hoopla, Flipster, Overdrive, and I can tell you, so 2017 Overdrive, the Libby app launched. Before that, when it was just Overdrive, as a librarian, I can tell you one of the most challenging things starting off was to get Overdrive to work for people. The Libby app in 2017 really changed everything because now it was more adaptable to everybody's different version of the iPhone, everybody's different version of the iPad. Android users are included now. And then, of course, the release of the Kindle, and including things like fewer cars being made with CD players. So what does that mean for people going on road trips now? They can't check out a stack of books on CD from us because their car is no longer compatible with that, but they can use Libby and they can use Hoopla and still continue those behaviors. And then, of course, you get to the pandemic, and things just shut down completely. And that was an interesting time because you can see the electronic checkouts are bumping up a little bit year over year, but nothing huge until we get to that pandemic year. And anecdotally, I can tell you the number of people we talked to over the phone who were reluctant to embrace those technologies before the pandemic. During the pandemic, it became a lifeline, and they would sit on the phone with us for tech help for as long as it took to figure out how to get those books on their iPhone. So that was a really interesting change. So you have those people that were like, I will never do this before the pandemic, and now they're out there walking along scenic, listening to their book, and they're very happy, and they've got it down. So not a bad change, but just a change in behavior and these factors that aren't within the library's control, but that we're able to adapt to make sure that we are, meeting needs and keeping our community happy. So looking at these statistics, I feel heartened by our library usage, by our program attendance. I think that our electronic checkouts will probably start to level off soon, as will the spending. It was something that, and I included this in the staff report, when the Kindle was launched, it was the death knell of hard copy books, which it wasn't. There was a surge in ebook sales, but that dipped back down, and that was because people of the younger generations actually said, we like holding books. I don't think that that's ever going to go away, regardless of ages, that people want to hold. That experience can't be beat. Convenience for ebooks, yes, but also books are definitely a thing, and if, wars and pandemics and library burnings can't destroy hard copy books, I don't think that ebooks spell our death knell. Now, we do still need to remain cognizant, of course, of our ebook spending in terms of what the publishers do to limit library access. So publishers, even with hard copies, have never really been that keen on us. Each book that we circulate could be lost sales for them. With ebooks, because we're not outright purchasing the content, it's a license for us. So the different models we have are you purchase an ebook, and ebooks, of course, are twice, sometimes three times the cost of hard copy books. You can have it for 2 years. Sometimes they limit the number of checkouts per book. It depends. So I get notifications every week. Oh, you purchased this book. The title's about to expire. Do you want to repurchase it? And so we take a look at that and see how well it was circulating and is it run its life cycle, or do we need to do that? The other thing to consider with ebooks that they can do that hard copy books can't do is increase accessibility. So with ebooks, you have the ability to change the font size for people that are visually impaired. So we have of course, our large print collection. It's small. It's hard to get a good selection of large print books, and they're often expensive, and they're heavy. If you've picked one up, they're twice as heavy as a regular hardback book. They also have functionalities to help people who have dyslexia so that they can read books that hard copy books cannot do. So it's important to factor that in with all of the decisions that we make around ebooks. It also adds a layer of privacy. we're very keen on privacy in terms of, we have rules about holds. For instance, if you're whatever human you cohabit with comes in and says, oh, I want to pick their books up, and they don't have your library card, we won't give them your hold, because if you're looking and researching a sensitive topic that's private to you, which is fair, we're not going to just hand over your book. With ebooks, you can check them out in a discreet way and do the research you need to do or whatever it is without worry about that being discovered, because we don't keep records of checkouts. Again, right now, I think we're in a good place with our ebook usage and spending. We will continue to monitor it as we go along. I don't think that, the publishers are going to change anything anytime soon, but I'm hopeful that they will, because more libraries are banding together with things like the state of California, the Palaces app, where we pool together any ebooks that we own, things that are in the public domain. We can share what we've purchased through Overdrive with other libraries throughout the state so that we can leverage our resources and share those costs. And I'll be curious to keep tracking and see how that impacts things. While we're not happy with the publishers, if we're going to say, oh, they're terrible and we don't want to do this model because we don't like the way we're doing it, I would think that we would also need to look at other companies and things that we're purchasing from, if that would be a stance that we're going to take and look at. We do order DVDs from Amazon. That's the best and cheapest way to get DVDs. And we all know, what Amazon is like and how they treat their workers. So that's a bigger philosophical discussion about how we do the library operations. But again, we'll keep tracking these. I'll keep bringing things to the Board of Trustees so that we can talk about the financial impacts of ebooks, what our circulation looks like, and how we meet community needs while still being fiscally responsible as a board. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
So what's your measure of success? I'm looking at chart 1. A lot of numbers there. How do you measure your success when you look at this?
That's a good question. And it's not easily answered with numbers because, yes, we can see that library usage has gone up from what it was before, but it's changed. So how do we measure success? I don't have a good answer for that. Library impacts are tough to track. So I love hearing politicians or professors or whoever credit the library with where they are today and that type of thing. And those impacts are harder to trace. And I think those are better indicators of the success of libraries and the impacts we can make. I think that one of the worries of the board was that, before we were able to open again, especially before we were able to have almost full-time hours again, that people wouldn't come back to the library because they were using ebooks more and that our physical spaces were obsolete. And I don't think that was the case. I think that is a success for us to see that our door counts and our patron visits have gone up. The usage of the gathering place is a good indicator that the library is an important part of the community. So it's more complicated than just, people are checking out books. It's how are people in the library, that we're still a space that people want to be for many different reasons.
The reason I asked was that, the total circulation seems to be consistent and going up, which is, one measure of success. And, the other one is the patron visits. And the question is that how good is that data, or have you changed the way you've counted the patrons coming through? I mean, the devices, is it somebody sitting at the door and now it's
and
electronic?
Doing the clicker.
Because that's a huge jump to 120,000 from before. That's a 50% jump from pre-pandemic.
Yes.
And that seems high.
Extraordinary, yes.
Yeah.
So I will say before the pandemic, you'll remember we had those security gates up, which acted as our door counters. They didn't work the best, and so we researched during the pandemic better door counters. And I think we have a more accurate count, and if we had had those in place before the pandemic, that the numbers would be comparable.
Right. So I guess my point is patron visits is fine. I mean, but you can kind of get a sense of people kind of going in and out. But is the library providing the right services? And I guess I joined the board in 2017, and you remember back then I was talking about, what was the future of the library if we had electronic checkouts? Did that obviate the need for the library, per se? Right. And I think over time I've gotten to the point where, no, well, one, you're not going to put the genie back in the bottle. I mean, the electronic checkouts are here to stay, in that the there are certain things that a physical library is better at than electronics, and it sounds like it's the exploratory of the kids' library into where kids don't know what they want. It's hard to go in. I mean, they're good at computers, but maybe it's better looking at the books. And then the adults, you serve as you can. I mean, you brought up the point on the large print, the people wanting to hear the books. So, yeah, I think that we need to be able to articulate in a modern world
What that means. And it's always
what that
been,
looks like.
yeah, and I think that's always been a challenge for libraries because the numbers don't tell everything. And, you know, for instance, our smaller programs, the music and the library programs have been very well attended since we launched those. And, you know, people are coming that could maybe go to Sunset Center or afford a ticket there, or they just like being in the library and listening to that wonderful music.
Right.
So, you know, it's our programs, and it's really important. If you were able to go into the Ezra Klein show on the New York Times, the new ALA president talks about how libraries are really one of the only spaces that, you know, you can be there with no questions asked. You don't have to pay for anything, but it's one of the last places that we can be with people who are different socioeconomic statuses as us, and that we can find a sense of community. We still play these roles that are really, really important, and I think that you can see that coming out in program attendance. And I'm hoping that we, probably with the help of the foundation, as we work more closely with them on social media, can tell that story better, and get that word out there about what we can provide and how we are succeeding at what we do.
So does that kind of lead to as we move forward, or the library moves forward through the years, that you start focusing more on the library programs for the physical plant, you know, the buildings, so
Right.
that there's
We have adequate space, we have flexible
Right.
space where we're doing smaller programs or larger programs, and that the spaces that we have support that flexibility of need as we go forward. That would be ideal.
with a literature-based focus.
Yes, books will always be a part of the library. It's not a library without books, and I don't think anybody wants that at all. But around the books, so we can maneuver them. I mean, just case in point, the movable shelves at the Park Branch Library. Those are full of books. Now we can move them and slide them out of the way, so we can have, you know, Bubble Magic and the Parrot Guy during summer reading and all of those things. So both things can be happening in the same space. There's lots of opportunities for that.
A little bit of an esoteric point, but the one thing that ChatGPT-4 can't do is English literature and composition. It fails that AP test. So, I mean, there's a need for that human interaction.
Yes.
Anyway.
Is there a way to break out the patron visits by, I mean, I know you have the program numbers and stuff, but, because it is a huge jump. And it does it infers a story when you look at the checkout versus the numbers of patron visits, that, you know, you can sort of guess at why that number's getting higher, but do we have any information about that?
We have a breakout, so if you look at the librarian's report, I can break it out by building and space, and you could probably break it down further depending on where the program was held, if you wanted to dial it down. But yeah, program attendance, especially in the kids' library, is very robust.
Anybody else have any comments?
No, I get a lot of, am I on? I don't know. That's off. No, I should be on. There we go. I get a lot of people who just want to see our library, visitors at the market, who ask when it's open. They just want to come in and see. We have such a beautiful building that people are really interested. So I think part of that visit kind of thing is people that are really want to see the building and the artwork and so forth that's there, besides actually using the library.
It's a good respite for tourists who may become regular visitors and be here for a month and transition to second homeowners, and then they're living here permanently. And the art collection at the Main is lovely, and we do have an art brochure tour that people, you know, will borrow from us and walk around and learn about the artwork that we have up there, some of the nicest art that the city owns.
My question is, should we maybe start focusing more, as Phil was saying, on programs? Start budgeting next year, looking heavier into programs, or like the rolling shelves, that helped. Should we look at maybe other things we could do to make the children's library more accessible to programs?
Yes, and I think the last few years, thanks to the Rotary Club, we've done that with the movable shelves, but also movable furniture. So the tables and chairs are on wheels, so we can configure them however we want, whether it's, using the water table after story time for sensory play for kids. We've got the lower tables for toddlers, but they can be reconfigured so that we've got something going on for the little kids while we have a bigger craft program going on for the 7 to 10-year-olds and into the tweens. And in fact, we're going to be working on a program coming up with the tweens in particular, because we have, of course, the teen library space is at the main. So to get them ready for that transition to that space, because it's kind of scary for the tweens themselves to make that jump from middle school into high school, but also for their parents. So we're actually going to start doing kind of a double program where we have something going on for the younger kids, but we're going to take over the local history department and do a program for the tweens so they can get used to a space that not necessarily is geared for kids. The teen lounge, of course, is, but it's in an adult building, and so we can test out making them comfortable being in that new space. So we're excited to try programming out like that, since we have that area across that's, a little formidable and intimidating, and making it a place that, hopefully they'll see it and ask questions about local history, and that can translate to, them coming in for reports for their source material and things like that. And I can tell you that the third grade classes, when they come through, those tours make such a huge impact. I've had kids come in later and say, oh, I did that tour, and they're 10 years old now and they still remember it. And it's, that's an important thing we can do. So having them in there for a different kind of program, I think is going to be really interesting, and we're looking forward to it.
Anybody else? Okay. Guess we can move on. Okay. All right, we'll have the treasurer's report.
Okay, thank you. So first I want to thank John for his help. This was my first 2 months of doing the reports, and he was very, very helpful. And I think we figured out the PDF issue for Leslie, so the report is here. I think it looks like we are way over budget because we have not yet gotten the money from the foundation, but that is paid quarterly. So I think the next payment will come in October, and things will look much better at that point. We're also making money on interest more than was expected, which is a good thing. Of course, this week that may have all disappeared, but we'll see what happens. It's possible that we'll end up having some additional income, which is always a good thing. Other than that, I don't think there's much to say. We're pretty much on target, and a few things look like we're way over budget, but those are mostly annual subscriptions and things like that. Does anyone have any questions?
I will just note that the distribution for from the Carmel Public Library Foundation will be reflected in the September financials that came in just after.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's already been deposited.
Great.
And we'll see that then.
Great, thank you.
I guess that's it then on that.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Thank you very much.
So there was a little bit earlier, there was, I guess we need to approve the check detail.
Oh, yes.
And then a little earlier, there was an ebook cost. Did we cover that in the earlier discussion, or is that something that we need to go back to?
I don't think we need to go back to it.
Okay.
I'm keeping an eye on, the ups and downs of it. And like I said, I'm looking for it to level off at some point this year.
Okay. All right, we could have approval of the check report. Check register.
Make a motion to approve the check register for July 2023.
A second?
Marie Claire Gorham.
Yes.
Susan Murphy.
Yes.
Bill Pardue.
Yes.
Mary Jo Williams.
Yes.
John Fisher.
Yes.
Approved. Thank you. Was that for both or just July?
That was for both.
Okay.
You're both.
Thought I just heard July. Thank you.
Okay, do we have anything we want to talk about in the future?
At this point, one of the things that I have is we've got a couple of items that need to be worked on, and I'll be bringing forward some requests for the formation of ad hoc committees as we move forward. So, and that's it.
I think on the future, we maybe could touch on what you're talking about, Phil, about the cost of the ebooks, if we have to look into it, maybe the first of the year.
Right, no, it was an agenda item. As I went through, it looked like, if you're spending about half your, within 3% of your budget and it matches your circulation, then it's probably okay.
Right.
But you just didn't have a chance to talk to it. I didn't know if,
No, we
actually-
still, I think we talked about it, was it last month when I did the report out on where we landed with the fiscal year 22-23 budget, and we also discussed it in the springtime planning for the 23-24 budget, that we were in very close alignment with circulation statistics. And if for some reason that changes during the year where we see a significant shift, one way or the other, we can always do budget adjustment to meet those needs.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and right now we are on target with what the budget was for ebooks, so. We're not- Just a little bit over, but not much.
I guess we can adjourn then if the meeting's over. Thank you.